Today's agenda is we're going to cover three of the most important issues to understand with Dynamics AX 2012 versus finance and supply chain management. A lot of people know it as F&O, so if I do mention that, that's the same product. The three areas that we're going to really focus on today is security and infrastructure with AX versus F&O, finance and supply chain, and around kind of the disaster, cyber attacks, those types of things, and then updates with AX 2012 in the past and how that worked previously and how it works today with the finance and supply chain management, and then also reporting and integrations with how they worked with AX 2012 and then going forward with the finance and supply chain going forward. We'll first start with security here. So security with AX in your infrastructure. Some folks have AX 2009, 2012. There's different flavors of it, R2, R3. The net result is any of these environments, they were all, the customer hosts all the hardware, software, everything. It's all left to you to host and manage and keep running on a day-to-day basis, which is a big challenge, especially going forward here. The other thing is if your customers are hosting it internally in their corporate environments, physical disasters happen. I've had customers before where they've had fires at their facilities and those types of things. So luckily their ERP was out, not hosted at their facility, but had it been, that would have been very costly for them. And it's hard to costly to mitigate that if you have a third-party hosting provider. A lot of folks, put their servers out with a co-location provider that has backup generators, redundant internet, all those, but still it's probably at one physical facility. Some of them have a couple, two or three maybe in the country that they could fail over to, depending on how much your budget is to spend on those co-location facilities. The other item is security. So it's all on the customer to secure in AX before. So as good as your IT infrastructure is, that's as good as your AX security environment is going to be. Especially with ransomware, it's, nobody's immune from that kind of stuff. It happens. And today, that's the situation of, you have to make sure that have everything really locked down. It's a huge investment on staying secure all the time. Challenge to facilitate employees to work remotely. AX 2012, it was all client server based architecture. So servers were hosted at a customer's data center, and then the application was installed within the corporate infrastructure on a desktop or a laptop. So if an employee has a travel, whatever, if they had a desktop, they wouldn't have access to AX. If they had a laptop, they could take it with them, but then they're bound by, corporate, as long as they had access to corporate VPNs and firewalls, they could get access into there, but they're still needing updates on the laptop, the AX client itself, and security and all that is still can be a challenge at times. We'll move along. This is just a topology overview of AX. So older AX, still 2009, even going back to that in 2012, you had a very complex, if it was a big deployment of AX and even smaller deployments, it was a pretty complex environment on the back end. So just in general, you just had a lot of servers that IT had to manage in the back end. You had SQL servers and AOS servers there. And then other other servers in the perimeter, so getting out to VPNs and firewalls and all that also to play. And if it's a distributed environment across different across the country and different corporate locations, it's even got more complex. So this just is basically to show you that, you know, the existing AX 2012, you know, infrastructure, hardware infrastructure is pretty complex to manage currently. This I just wanted to bring up is just kind of the risk matrix we put together here. Currently, as of October 2021, you're at just a life support at this point. You have until October 2023, so technically AX customers out there still have a little bit of a lifeline, but right now it's coming up, and security is going to be the big thing. There's just not a lot of support out there for it at the moment. If you did have a problem, Microsoft will only help you with just a bare minimum of keeping it up and running. And then you're down in the SQL Server support level also. Is if you have to rebuild these environments, that could be very detrimental. Getting the software even is hard to find. In some cases, Microsoft may not even give you some of these older SQL Server or Windows OS servers that you need to run your 2012 environment if you had to rebuild from a disaster recovery perspective. So kind of moving along on the security and infrastructure for finance and SCM. With SCM, the production environment is fully managed by Microsoft. So this allows customers to not have to worry about the picture I showed before of all that hardware and infrastructure, firewalls, security, and all that. Microsoft takes care of that. It's on the Azure platform, so you know, security networking technologies, they're the latest that are out there. Instead of, even if you had your AX environment at a colo facility that did have some redundant failover, Microsoft has, you know, a ton more across the entire country to fail over for in case there's a disaster. So it's really hard to compete with that in this day and age. And then, like I said, one of the biggest drivers is we've had several customers that have had issues with the security ransomware attacks on their environments, and with them hosting it internally, and it's out there, it's a thing. And not saying it can't happen to Microsoft, but they're a billion-dollar company and they invest a ton in security and in their network and infrastructure. So it's your odds are a lot better there. The other item obviously is disaster recovery too. So you have to, if a Microsoft environment has a problem, it'll fail over seamlessly to your employees, to your company. Obviously, nothing's hosted in your environment anymore, so you don't have to worry about that. And then employees can enter and connect anywhere, because Finance and SCM, it's a web-based browser, software as a service application, all in the cloud. So no matter what device they have, they can sign on with the Azure security and get on into and work with Finance and SCM pretty easily. So kind of the topology overview. I showed the big slide before with AX, going back to that, of a lot of hardware, very complex environment. So now basically this cloud area here, finance and operations app, that's where all those hardware pieces I showed in the old AX world really live, and it talks to the Microsoft Azure directory. So that's all the security and firewall from Microsoft. So that kind of shows you that the world's a lot simplified with finance and SCM, and it's built and runs on the latest platform layer. Its underpinnings are the Microsoft Azure platform, so it is always up to date in with the latest Microsoft Active Directory, security, all those in performance. The other thing, as far as scaling, I wanted to point out too, you're kind of stuck in your old AX 2012 environment with the hardware you have with this world, if you need more horsepower and more performance, Microsoft can scale up and give you that really easily with this environment being in the cloud. So it's a really nice benefit there. So going back to updates with AX, in the past, it was 100% up to customers to keep environments up to date. That is easier said than done when AX 2012 was in its midst. Now there are no new updates to it, so folks should be on the latest R3 update for AX 2012, but some are not. The latest releases you had to download from Microsoft, so you really had to be aware and know of them to download them. Nobody was going to come and download them for you. The customer had to manually install these into the environment and do what they called code merges. So the other part to that is releases, and these updates were very slow coming too, because they didn't put out a ton of updates in the AX world. It was like maybe once a year. If there was a hot fix you got from support, they would give you that. But even when they did things like an R2 to R3 upgrade, if anyone went through that, it was a very costly thing to do. The major versions upgrades were very time consuming for customers too. So you had to go through and manually install in the environment, do these code merges, fix things, and roll it out. And the upgrades were not, the code for these big upgrades was not yet ISV solutions, or customizations, there were conflicts that would happen. It was a big endeavor, both from the business side and the IT side. It was very costly and time consuming. Updates with finance and SCM. Now the customers have quicker access to the new features and functionality. They moved to a software model. It was termed evergreen. So these service updates are continuous, and they're kind of touchless updates to provide new features and functionality for customers. So you can take they've broken them up into wave releases, typically every 3 months or so. They'll have a bigger, larger wave release up there, and then they can also put service releases and hotfix into the environment. If they know of something, they can address it proactively. Because Microsoft now, in the past, they couldn't see bugs or performance issues as a whole holistically, because they don't have access to all the data or anything of the performance of the server and the hardware. Now they do, so they can proactively, if they see customers queries and things or back-end things going awry, they can fix those things proactively and roll it out to everybody on the platform. So it's really nice now. And then the upgrades, when we do have larger, these bigger wave releases with new features and functionalities in it, there isn't this big code merge process anymore. You accept it, you're allowed, you can take them as they come out. You can take them in beta in your test environments ahead of time, so you can test and make sure what features and functionality you really want to use. And if you're not ready, they also let you pause these updates too for about 3 times, and that buys you anywhere from 6 to 9 months that you could stay at a level if you needed to. If you were doing an upgrade, putting in a new ISV solution, new modules you're implementing, or something you didn't want any volatility, so you can do that and then take the latest update after that if you need to. So moving along to reporting and integrations in AX. For reporting, they leveraged additional reporting tools. They had one called Management Reporter, which was an older tool that was also utilized in the GP world also. And it was a standalone application kind of product from Microsoft that interacted with AX, but it was its own, yet again, another server application, another client application that IT had to manage out there. They embedded SSRS reporting, the SQL Server reporting services, reporting into AX, and then limited, which you required having a developer to work on any of those reports. And then they had limited support for advanced analytical reporting, so the OLAP cubes, some of that type of stuff. Power BI was kind of coming of age a while back. Pivot tables and those things that you would leverage for OLAP cubes and executive dashboards, those things were talked about a lot in the AX 2012 world, but they were very limited on what you could out of the box they exposed, and to customize to build more advanced cubes to support analytic reporting was very, very time consuming and costly back then. On the integration side, so integrations were also complex. So they had the application integration framework known as the AIF, and then we had straight .NET X++ coding that you could do to integrate and talk with AX, which both those were, again, very time consuming and very complex for developers to write. And then again, if another upgrade came out, it caused R2, R3, sometimes a rewrite of some of these integrations, which is very painful for customers. On the reporting, switching back to finance and SCM, the reporting strategy, so they've really moved to a self-service model and really empowered the end business user to get the majority of the reports themselves. So operational reporting, within the application. So there's out of the box, there's workspaces that can be customized. A lot of the grids, tabular type things are Excel compatible. Users can add columns and do a lot of querying with just the functionality of the application itself. There's the concept of business documents now that's used to capture business data. So these documents here, if you have customer-facing documents, this can be a useful tool for that. Analytical tools and visualization. So in there, they've really given 100% focus on Power BI now. So Power BI is there natively available out of the box, and you can there's a lot right out of the box. You can utilize Power BI in the different areas in finance and the supply chain management modules. And there's also this concept that's called the data lake now. It used to be called BYOD, but we can dump data out and then also aggregate it a lot easier than before and utilize the latest Microsoft tools like Power BI to do advanced analytical reporting with. And then electronic reporting. So that's another tool out there that's available for, again, supporting business documents and reporting out there. And then financial reporting. So I mentioned management reporter. This is the same thing, but it's embedded inside of finance and supply chain management now. So in there, there's no more additional servers or anything like that. It's just, it works and acts the same as the older management reporter tool, but there's no having to have IT install yet another server or manage the back end of it. So Microsoft takes care of all that for you. And then with the integrations with finance and SCM, that's one of the huge items here. In addition to the reporting, is the world options of integrations have become a lot more available and supported, easier for for businesses to talk to other applications. So Power Apps, it's fully functional with that. On the finance and SCM platform, you're gonna they're always going to keep it up to the same level as the Power Apps, Power Platform technology out there. So the other kind of sister products of finance and SCM are the customer engagement products. So things like project operations, sales, and field service can integrate with D365 or investment in finance and SCM via what they're calling a technology of dual write that lives on a common data platform on the Power Apps world. So that's really nice. It makes it a lot easier to exchange data with other native Microsoft applications. There's also the Open Data Protocol. It's been around for a while, but it is available for folks to use if you're connecting to another system that requires that. And then also Azure API services, so batch, being able to do things like batch integrations, web services, and custom. If you need to write a custom API to either expose to another system or communicate with it, you can also use that approach. The also interesting thing to note is Office Excel integration. So it's pretty integrated to the Office products in general. Most folks really care about Excel, so you can export things to Excel really easily in finance and supply chain management. So again, empowering the end users to get the data out themselves as opposed to having to go to a developer or IT to get data out of the system. So kind of moving along here, I just wanted to go over a quick reasons to upgrade to F&O. And I kind of went over the AX 2012 versus F&O, different areas here. In there, I noted that take advantage of new features and functionality in F&O is a lot easier now. The big selling point is this evergreen approach now, minimal impact on users, so you could take advantage of technologies like Power Automate. Everybody wants to streamline their business processes and automate as much as possible. And you can take advantage of these technologies as they're evolving. Finance and supply chain management are going to take advantage of these Microsoft technologies too. Customization, so they're implemented as extensions in F&O. So going back to upgrades in AX 2012, and you had a lot of issues with that. Going forward, if you have customizations in your system, you're not actually developing against the system, you're developing outside on extensions. And Microsoft's made the commitment that if you follow those rules, then your customizations are still going to work as they keep upgrading the system. So that's really nice. And then the production, these production environments and even the test environments, all that's hosted by Microsoft, and the production environment is fully managed by Microsoft. So you don't have to worry about, the disaster recovery, performance, those issues. They're right there. If you do have an issue, you can submit a ticket. They'll see all your metrics right away. You don't have to worry about sending them a bunch of your data, your performance data, all that. They'll see that. And then all the other environments, your test, dev environments are also hosted in the Azure environment too. So it's all cloud-based. So that's super nice of not having to worry about keeping hardware up to date, and the underpinnings like the Windows OS and SQL Server and some of those other applications that finance to supply chain utilizes behind the scene. Microsoft takes care of keeping those all up to date. So again, on the security side, you're always up to date on the latest security patches and hot fixes. So that wraps up the presentation for today. I thank you for your time. If you have any questions and comments, I think we have a couple minutes. If there's one or two out there, Sherry, or we can go ahead and wrap this up.
Yeah, I don't see any questions here, Mike, so I think we can wrap it up. So again, thank
Okay.
you everyone for joining today, and I hope you found today's presentation informative, and have a great rest of your day.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And if you have any questions or anything about this, definitely reach out to us. We'll be happy to talk with you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.